Hey guys, it's me, Seren, back with another video. So a lot of you guys have been asking me, did I watch Watchmen this past Sunday with Regina King, who you guys know I love, and I did watch it. A lot of you guys have been asking me if I'm going to review it. The way I normally review TV shows is I review a whole season. So like I did an entire review of Roots. If you haven't seen that, I'll include links in the description box. Obviously for everything I mentioned in this video, like I always do. But like I reviewed Roots, like at the end, I reviewed the first season of Stranger Things as a whole at the end. It's kind of hard, especially because like Watchmen is coming on HBO, so it's like you can only watch one episode a week. You can't like watch the whole thing and then review it. And I think there's going to be 9 episodes. So I don't know, it'd be weird to do like basically a weekly video just like solely dedicated to Watchmen. I normally don't do that. But if you guys want weekly videos on Watchmen, like reviews, I can do that for you. Just let me know in the comments if that's something you guys would be interested in. Otherwise, I will probably wait until the end to do a like full, I'll probably do a full recap regardless at the end. So if you guys want individual episode reviews as well as it goes along, just let me know. But yes, Watchmen. So the Watchmen show on HBO premiered this past Sunday. There was a lot of talk about it, a lot of hullabaloo about it, especially considering Regina King recently won the Best Actress Oscar for her role in If Beale Street Could Talk, which I also did a review. If you haven't seen that, there'll be a link for that as well. So now she's kind of like coming down off this prestige, which is really, really funny. You guys know I feel weird about fucking awards, and this is kind of like an example of why, because like Regina King has been like grinding and doing her thing in Hollywood for like decades now, right? Like she was in Poetic Justice, and she's been in a ton of movies that have kind of been cornerstones of Black American culture, and yet it was kind of like, and even If Beale Street Could Talk was like an adaptation of James Baldwin, and it was directed by Barry Jenkins, who did Moonlight, so she's like very like embedded into, sort of our Black American collective consciousness, but it kind of wasn't until she won this award that, now, I guess you could say people are paying more attention to her, which is just like a weird thing for me. I've always loved Regina King. This Christmas, whooping ass with the baby oil, just fucking Enemy of the State, which you guys know is like one of my all-time favorite movies, because I feel like that shit is really real, where she's a fucking conspiracy theorist like married to Will Smith. If you haven't seen that movie, like please watch it. So it's just like I've always loved Regina King, so I'm really excited to see her playing the lead in Watchmen, and I really, 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 really enjoyed this pilot episode. So for those of you that don't know very much about Watchmen, I know I was reading some stuff online, and I know a lot of people were saying like that the only thing that they know about Watchmen or experience they've had with Watchmen was the movie by Zack Snyder, which I loved the movie by Zack Snyder. Everyone knows that I also really enjoy Zack Snyder's filmmaking, but like that movie is like already 10 years old. It came out in 2009, and the original comic run was like in the 80s. So a lot of people are like unfamiliar with the property, and it's not an adaptation, it's a sort of like a sequel, like a continuation. The original Watchmen was set in 1985. This one is set, I believe, 34 years after those original events, and so we kind of see how those previous events and that previous timeline has kind of like played out into what we're watching now. So let me read you guys just a little bit about it. Watchmen is a comic book maxi series by the British creative team of writer Alan Moore, artist Dave Gibbons, and colorist John Higgins. It was published by DC Comics in 1986 and 1987. Moore used the story as a means to reflect contemporary, so these would be contemporary, obviously, in the 80s, contemporary anxieties, and to deconstruct and satirize the superhero concept. Watchmen depicts an alternate history where superheroes emerged in the 1940s and 1960s, and their presence changed history so that the United States won the Vietnam War and the Watergate break-in was never exposed, and Richard Nixon remained president for like fucking years and years and years. In 1985, the country is edging towards World War III with the Soviet Union. Freelance costumed vigilantes have been outlawed, And most former superheroes are in retirement or working for the government. The story focuses on the personal development and moral struggles of the protagonists as an investigation into the murder of a government-sponsored superhero pulls them out of retirement. So let me go ahead and say that every single time I watch The Incredibles, I think of Watchmen. It is basically the exact same plot as Watchmen. So for those of you that have seen The Incredibles, which most people have, I feel like at this point, for those of you that have seen The Incredibles, if you're not super sure about Watchmen, the plot is kind of the same. That superheroes were quote unquote real, revealed themselves, but then they became outlawed by the government. They kind of fell out of favor. It's like a similar concept. I know maybe that sounds like weird, but it is basically. Watchmen is intense and it's kind of hard to get into, but again, it's just like I just said, it's unpacking a lot of the contemporary anxieties of that time, with the Soviet Union and the Cold War and World Wars. And another thing about Watchmen is that only one of the superheroes actually has any powers. And that is Dr. Manhattan. Now, since the HBO version is a continuation of the story, in the pilot, we weren't really shown. I mean, there were some hints that characters from the previous Watchmen would be present. They showed Jeremy Irons, who a lot of people are wondering if he's possibly Ozymandias. He had these like two servants that appeared to me to be motherfucking robots, or like people that he created or something along those lines. So people are sort of speculating about who he's going to be. But something that I thought was really interesting about this sort of interpretation or continuation of the Watchmen story was that Watchmen has always dealt in this sort of political and social anxieties of the time. It's meant to be played as a contemporary story. So I actually thought that it was a really good idea to sort of move it forward through time into basically the present day, instead of doing sort of a remake or a rehash of something that was set in the 80s and kind of trying to make it relevant for now. And so the plot, as we see, it opens with the destroying and the bombing of Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which apparently people thought was fiction and didn't know about. I couldn't tell you when I learned about this. I feel like I've always known about it my whole life, which means my grandmother probably taught me about it when I was a little girl, because my grandma used to take me to the library and she used to like teach me all about like Black American history and teach me that white people ain't shit and you can't trust them. So it's very interesting to me that they opened with this, and there were so many people that were, white people especially, that were like, I thought this was a part of like the alternate history, the alternate reality. I Googled it and I found out that this shit really happened. I was shocked. I couldn't believe it. Like, you couldn't believe it. Like, every bad thing that you could imagine has happened to Black Americans. Like, full stop. Full stop. But since we are Black, it's not held in like this high esteem, like say the Holocaust or something of that nature. And every step of the way, there has been a denial of what happened to us, an outright ignoring, an outright trying to cover it up, an outright acting like it's not a big deal, acting like it was such a long time ago, like all that shit. So it's very interesting to me that they chose to start with that. Clearly that's meant to set the stage for what this sort of interpretation of Watchmen is going to be about, which is the contemporary anxiety around race relations, around the system of racism, white supremacy, around white supremacist groups, around neo-Nazis, all of these things that are the sort of contemporary issues of our time. I've seen a lot of complaining about why is race being inserted into Watchmen. It's like, but number one, race has always been a part of the politics of this country. That's not something that just became like race relations didn't become a new thing in 2014 with like Ferguson. So number one, that shit has always been a part of everything. But number two, again, Watchmen has always meant to tap into the contemporary political and social anxieties. And that's what is one of our contemporary political and social anxieties. And always has been. So especially since they went with the Black American main character with Regina King, I thought it was really, really interesting and fascinating that they decided to open with the destruction of Tulsa, Oklahoma. And then we see, bombs being dropped from airplanes, which really happened. We see fires. We see so many things. And a part of like why I do the Black Americans and why I do my Black Americans road trip is specifically to go to, these sort of almost like forgotten places in history where Black Americans are from, where we still live, where we've had to deal with these traumatic racial events and talk about it and deal with it and get it out. Something similar happened in in Arkansas. They had 9th Street, which was like a bustling Black owned, everything Black owned, Black people like doing it for themselves. And then what happened, like the townspeople voted, the white townspeople who were on all the fucking city councils and boards and committees voted to destroy it and build a highway through it. And they just like destroyed all that Black wealth. Like, Black people were doing all right. This is something that like people don't understand. Like, whenever I say like integration was a trap, integration was a mistake for us, like, it seems hard to fathom, but like in terms of like economics at the very least, like Black people were doing okay. Like, we're worse off now economically. Economically, we're worse off now than we were pre-integration because we had to support each other. We had to. We were required to, because there was no assimilation, there was no integration, there was no taking your money to a white person, taking your money to a white establishment. That was not allowed, right? We had to support each other. And so what ended up happening was a lot of job creation amongst ourselves, a lot of dollars circulating within our own communities, Black-owned bus services, Black-owned movie theaters, Black doctors, Black schools, all of these things that once, I kind of have a conspiracy theory that I even think that like integration, aka assimilation, was like, people started realizing that we had all this like buying power and this like purchasing power, and they decided to like usher us in so they could get our money. But that's a whole motherfucking other thing. But basically, Black Americans would be doing all right, and then here come a white person destroy it. Either with lynchings, either with mob violence, burning the town to the ground. Here come a white bitch with a false rape accusation. Like, these are things that really happen, and this is American history. And since the whole premise of Watchmen is revolving around an alternate history that still works within the parameters of our actual real contemporary, sort of day-to-day lives and struggles and politics and problems, I thought that this was actually a really inspired decision and angle to take with having, again, it opened with the massacre of Black Wall Street in Tulsa. I refuse to call it a race riot because Black people didn't do anything wrong. Like, white people attacked us. It was not a quote-unquote race riot. It was a massacre. Like, let's use words. Words have meanings. Let's use the appropriate words and discuss what they really, really mean. And then we kind of obviously travel through time. We're not exactly told what happened to the little boy. A little boy escapes. His parents get killed. They put him on a wagon, and actually the wagon ends up getting blown up, and he finds the baby and takes the baby and like leaves. I think that it's the Black dude that was in the wheelchair. I kind of feel like it was him. So we see it opens with Tulsa, Oklahoma, and then it travels sort of into the future, and now we're sort of in present day Oklahoma, and we're following Regina King, who is our main character. During the day, she's an ex-cop and a baker. She's running a bakery, but really all this is a front for her superhero vigilante persona as Night Sister, where she wears a mask and she's basically a Cape Crusader. She's a vigilante. She fights crime. They also discuss how in this version of reality, due to attacks on police officers are required by law to wear masks, right? So all the police officers wear masks. So there's a lot of immediate sort of interjection of I'm going to say that, like, right now in 2019, you really cannot remove certain ideas about police officers and law and order from race. Because even in the original Watchmen, you almost think of this concept of superheroes as like super cops, right? Like, that's what a superhero really is, right? A superhero is like a super cop. They're a person that takes law and order into their own hands. Batman, right? Like, that's what they do. They're like, well, I'm gonna uphold the law in my own way, be it dressing up and beating the shit out of people, be it killing people, be it, whatever it is. Rorschach, who's one of the main characters, if not the main character of the original Watchmen, is a superhero that wears this, like, Rorschach mask, the ink blot, where it's like, when you look at this picture, what do you see? The white with the ink blots or whatever. And he's like a moral absolutist. He believes in good and evil, right? And there's no gray area. So it's like, if you do something wrong, like, you're a bad person, you deserve to die, I'm gonna be the one to dispense justice, I'm gonna kill you. It's like motherfucking Judge Dredd. Like, I can be judge, jury, and executioner, and I can dispense justice based on what I think is correct. And so when you take that type of premise with a superhero or a quote-unquote super cop, and you put it in 2019, and then you also add the element of now they're allowed to wear masks, now we're already, even if they didn't introduce like the race element, quote-unquote, with the Tulsa, Oklahoma bombing in the beginning, we already would all be fucking thinking it. Like, what if this is a real world where fucking police officers are allowed to wear masks? Police officers already act with fucking impunity as it is right now. Like, this is gonna, how far is this gonna go type shit. And so it's also, that's what we would already be thinking. So for them to sort of get ahead of that by casting Regina King as our main character, as our main vigilante, so now we have a black woman sort of in this role. And also, one of the first people that we see get killed is also a black male police officer that when we first meet him, he has a mask on. So it's like, and that was like a brilliant scene where he like pulls this dude over, white dude, in a truck. He gets out, he has the mask on, he walks up. You originally have this sort of uneasy feeling because it's a police officer with a mask on, right? They're allowed to wear a mask. We wonder what he's going to do because in our world, that would just be a recipe for disaster. We see him go back to his car. We see him take the mask off. We see that it's a black guy. We see him call in and say, you know, I have someone with like possible contraband weapons. I think he might be part of 7K because like the bad guy, you know, the antagonist is 7K, 7 Cavalry, which is obviously meant to be a metaphor for which the 7th Cavalry was a real cavalry. So this is obviously meant to be sort of a stand-in metaphor for like the KKK and again for neo-Nazis and for white supremacists, right? And he's like, you know, I think they have weapons in the car, contraband in the car, right? And then he's like, release my weapon. So in this version, they have to like, the police have their weapons like attached to the car and they have to sort of go through this series of questions before they can even get the gun, right? And so he's trying to get the gun and then the white dude fucking shoots him, lights him up. Right, shoots his chest up. Just that quick, it got flipped. Now we have a black person that we think in the moment has been killed, but it turns out he doesn't die. He's in the hospital. A white person that has now killed a black man, right? And even the scenes where he's being asked the questions and he's trying to get the gun, like we want him to get the gun. We're like, get it, you know? So there's a lot of just flip-flopping of expectations and flip-flopping ideas about who's on the right side, who's on the wrong side. The masks add this like super fucking creepiness to it, right? Because it's just like, you don't know who these people are. So there's just like a lot of really, really interesting ideas and concepts that are introduced during this pilot. I also thought that it was fucking brilliant to make the 7K neo-Nazi, racist, white supremacists, these sort of devotees of Rorschach, because Rorschach is also depicted in the original Watchmen as like a right-wing, like today he would be like a Dylan Roof type of person. Like, they're raping our women, they're destroying our streets with crime, and they have to go. Which was what Dylan Roof wrote in his manifesto about Black Americans specifically. Like, this idea that, like, we are bad and we are evil, and when you have somebody that's already working, that's already sort of in this right-wing mindset of, like, again, like, the sort of even libertarian of, like, the government is bad, the police are bad, nobody knows what they're doing, everybody's stupid, I have to be the one to restore law and order. Like, I'm the person that knows what to do and is going to do what needs to be done when nobody else will do it. That translates so perfectly to, like, the neo-Nazi, the fascist, the racist, the white supremacist. Like, again, like, I was just watching this shit, like, I feel like they nailed it. I really don't understand some of the criticisms that I'm seeing saying that, like, this is not Watchmen and this is not, like, no, they fucking nailed the ideologies of Watchmen and updated it for 2019 and transplanted it into today. Like, the 7K people, like, they wear the Rorschach masks and, like, these are people that, like, genuinely believe, like, they believe that this is what, like, Rorschach would do or this is what Rorschach would want them to do, and, you know, that they're trying to, like, start this, like, race war because, like, it has to happen. Like, that shit is real. It's real. So I just thought that it was a very interesting choice to sort of make them these devotees of Rorschach, and they like wear the Rorschach masks because it just fits totally in with the character. I opened up a little bit about the character. I'm going to read you guys a little bit about the character. Alan Moore, the original writer, Moore depicted Rorschach as being extremely right-wing and morally absolute, a viewpoint that has alienated him from the rest of society, even among other superheroes. Rorschach presents his views on right and wrong as starkly black and white with no room for compromise. He holds deep contempt for behavior he considers immoral, right? But it's like what you consider immoral. Somebody would be like, well, Rorschach, you motherfucking killing people is immoral. But he doesn't consider it to be immoral, so it's not a problem, right? And he is openly derogative of heroes who do not share his unwavering views, deriding them as soft. Come on, who would that be in 2019? There's also some mention of reparations, which I found to be an extremely bold choice. So after President Nixon, in this alternate universe, the next president was Robert Redford, who gave reparations, which are there's this colloquial term for it in the pilot, Redfordations, because the president Robert Redford gave them, so they're Redfordations, but obviously that's meant to represent reparations. It's implied that these reparations have been given to Black Americans for racial injustice, and that especially in Tulsa, Oklahoma, where it's being said they've been given for the massacre of Black Wall Street. And there's a scene where Regina King's character is giving a talk at a school, and one of the white students raises his hand and is like, did you pay for all this? You know, because she has this bakery and stuff that serves as the front for her vigilante activities. She says that she's a retired police officer because she was involved in this incident in which the police officers and their friends and family members were targeted and tortured and killed, which is why they made the action for them to be able to wear masks. But really, she still works with the Tulsa police, the sister night. But her front is that she's running this bakery, and so this kid raises his hand and is like, "Did you pay for that with your reparations?" And so obviously, there's this animosity from the white population towards the Black Americans that have received the reparations. And we also gather that not only is 7K, just because we have white supremacist groups now, just because they're fucking racist. Imagine if we got real actual reparations and they had something tangible to sort of gather around of this is not fair. So that's basically what we're sort of seeing depicted in Watchmen, which is just, that shit is bold. That was bold as fuck. I was watching they really decided to go. They decided to go there. Let's do it. And part of what 7K does is attack the police and their families for their role in enforcing the reparations. They're attacking Black people for receiving reparations, which we absolutely 100% deserve from this country. They're attacking us for having something. So now we're getting into this cosmic echo, because what did they do to us during Tulsa? They attacked us for having something. What did they do to us on 9th Street in Arkansas? They attacked us for having something. And so now there's sort of this depiction of us receiving reparations, which we are absolutely 100% owed and deserved as Black American descendants of American chattel slavery. Solely us. I don't want to hear nothing about nobody else, because everybody's talking about underserved groups and minority groups. We need to really deal with the reckoning of American chattel slavery in this country specifically, the treatment of Black Americans in this country specifically. And I do think it's very interesting to sort of, through Watchmen, unpack the idea of Black Americans receiving reparations and how would this be taken by the rest of the United States, and in particular the white population, via this alternative reality. Why not? Why the fuck not? Why should we not explore it? Especially when that's what Watchmen does, right? They explore these sort of alternate ideas about American history. I think it's a great, inspired, bold choice. I'm really feeling it. I'm with it. Black Manta from Aquaman is also in it as one of the main characters. He's playing Regina King's husband. He was also in Striking Vipers, episode of Black Mirror with Anthony Mackie. And as you guys might remember, if you saw my Aquaman review, one of the few things that I enjoyed about this movie was Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, who played Black Manta. So I'm really happy to see that he is one of the leads in Watchmen, and playing opposite Regina King. I think that was really, really great. And I just loved seeing Regina King. I thought that she was a great character. Just in this 1 hour long episode, we saw so much. We saw her with him. There's a sex scene. So we saw her be sexy. We saw her be, she goes to like the kids' school, and she's like giving this like bakery speech. So, but we see her sort of being like motherly. They have these 2 white kids. I don't know if the kids are adopted. I don't know what's the deal with the kids. I don't get what that's supposed to be about. Again, I'm assuming that there's going to be more explanation introduced later on, but we see her sort of be like soft and motherly with the kids. Like, we just see a lot of different sides of this like Black American woman, and the fact that it's also Regina King just made it even like better. We see her be like vicious and brutal and kill somebody because there's like all this blood, even though they don't like actually show it. I'm pretty sure she like killed that dude, but we see her like beating the shit out of people. Like, we see her being a multifaceted person just from one episode, which I really enjoyed, and I feel like I'm really gonna enjoy seeing her acting and just really portraying and embodying this character as we learn more and more about like this particular sort of interpretation of the world and the people in it and the inhabitants in it and the Watchmen, you know, the police and the superheroes. I think it's going to be a really, really amazing, interesting show with some great concepts and themes. So all in all, I really enjoyed it. I'm super intrigued by the premise. I thought it was great. This isn't really the good, the bad, and the ugly type of format. It's always kind of hard to do that again with like standalone, well, maybe not with standalone episodes, because you can say what you liked and didn't like about a standalone episode, but pilots, you never know, you don't know what's really going on, especially because like nowadays there's like a tendency for the pilots to like start in the middle, which it did, and then you kind of like work your way back and figure out what's happening and what's going on. But I really, really, really enjoyed it. Again, you guys can let me know if you want weekly reviews per episode. Otherwise, I will most likely just be doing an overview recap at the end. But I liked it. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was super intriguing, super inspired, great casting. I already like most of these actors. I already feel like it's a dope-ass premise that I think is going to go really, really far and really, really interesting. And I think that this is the perfect vehicle to explore some of these ideas and concepts because they are relevant to right now. It's exactly what we're talking about reparations right now. We're talking about, like, we have a presidential election coming up. Like, all these things are things that are you know, they matter. So I think that this is and I think that this is, like, instead of even doing something, like, super serious or whatever, I feel like one of the things that I've always loved about science fiction, about speculative fiction, about comics, about superheroes, about movies and TV shows, and all these types of things is that these speculative fiction can be used to explore anything you want, right? And to make it accessible. So I think that this was like a great choice. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm enjoying it. So Watchmen. What did you guys think? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Obviously, there will be links to related videos in the description box. Food for thought as always. See you guys next time.